Closed roads are at 580, down from about 1,200. Many water systems and wells are now operational. However, challenges do remain in restoring water to Asheville and some other communities. FEMA has approved 77,000 people for individual assistance, with more than $99 million already paid out. FEMA is paying for temporary stays for more than 1,900 people in hotels, and together we're working on more temporary housing. We're thankful to our National Guard and our active duty military personnel who partnered on this critical mission. North Carolina's National Guard was in Western North Carolina before, during, and after the storm. And we believe this was the fastest and largest integration of active military soldiers working with the National Guard in North Carolina history. Their work has been critical at a key moment in the response. And thanks to this strong operation, significant progress has been made in search and rescue, getting supplies where they're needed, and transportation assistance. I am so grateful for the thousands of state workers and first responders, nonprofit volunteers who remain on the ground working to assist in the recovery. North Carolinians are resilient, and our response to this disaster is strong. However, there's still a persistent and dangerous flow of misinformation about recovery efforts in Western North Carolina that can lead to threats and intimidation, breeds confusion, and demoralizes storm survivors and response workers alike. If you're participating in spreading this stuff, stop it. Whatever your aim is, the people you are really hurting are those in Western North Carolina who need help. The safety of our government and volunteer response workers, including FEMA, remains a top priority. I've directed the Department of Public Safety to coordinate law enforcement assistance for FEMA and other responders who need it to help ensure their safety and security so people can keep getting the help that they desperately need. We also know that there are many people looking for ways to help. We've activated the North Carolina Disaster Relief Fund managed by the United Way of North Carolina. Donations to this fund go directly to organizations providing relief on the ground. For more information and to make a donation, you can visit nc.gov/donate. Work continues on repairing our damaged roads and bridges. Secretary Hopkins is going to give you an update on that progress. But some roads are closed because they're too damaged and dangerous to travel. There are other roads that still need to be reserved for essential traffic like utility vehicles, construction equipment, and supply trucks. However, some parts of the area are open and ready to welcome visitors, which is critical for the revival of Western North Carolina's economy. So if you're considering a visit to the area, consult drivenc.gov for open roads and reach out to the community and the businesses you want to visit to see if they are welcoming visitors back yet. In the immediate aftermath of this storm, because of massive communication outages in Western North Carolina, many people called 211 to report friends or family they couldn't get in touch with. When phone service began to return, many people located their loved ones, but that information doesn't usually make it back to 211. The Department of Public Safety formed a task force to find who is still unaccounted for and focus efforts where needed. I want to caution that this is not a definitive count because the task force is continuing its work. The number will continue to fluctuate as more reports come in and others are resolved. As of today, the task force number of unaccounted for people is 92. The task force, law enforcement, and other partners will continue working to locate those who are unaccounted for, and I am thankful for their efforts. This storm brought historic rain and damage to one of the most beautiful regions in our state. In the face of this catastrophic disaster, North Carolinians have come together to help each other and begin to move forward. The road to recovery will be long, and we will be with Western North Carolina every step of the way. Today I'm joined by Emergency Management Director Will Ray, FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell, Major General Todd, the Adjutant General of the North Carolina National Guard, the Secretary of the Department of Transportation, Joey Hopkins, our Secretary of Department of Public Safety, Eddie Buffaloe, the Commander of the North Carolina State Highway Patrol, Colonel Freddie Johnson, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, Cody Kinsley. Our sign language interpreters are Mark Lineberger and Nicole Fox, and behind the scenes, our Spanish language interpreters are Tamara Cabrera and Erica Kugler. We'll first hear from Emergency Management, Will Ray.
Thank you, Governor Cooper, and good morning, everyone. The response and recovery efforts following Helene are ongoing across Western North Carolina. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to everyone that has responded to assist our state and to support our local communities during this challenging time. Over 1,500 responders from 38 states have responded to assist North Carolina in our response and recovery efforts. It's been inspiring to see the collaboration and support of partners from across the country converging on our state with one shared mission: to help Western North Carolina. Recovery efforts are continuing and increasing across the impacted area, with local, state, and federal resources deployed into the counties. Over 170,000 North Carolinians have applied for FEMA individual assistance, with nearly $100 million dispersed directly to survivors. Disaster recovery centers have begun operation in impacted counties, and more are coming online before week's end. 4,600 individuals are housed in hotels through FEMA's Transitional Housing Assistance Program. Disaster recovery centers provide critical in-person assistance for survivors that need resources to recover. Applicants can also check on their application status or seek answers to their questions at these locations. FEMA has over 1,200 personnel on the ground, with many distributing information in the impacted communities. As a reminder, FEMA personnel can be identified by their FEMA logo apparel and federal government identification. While many communities have begun the transition from response to recovery, there are still North Carolina fire personnel and trucks, state and federal search and rescue teams, emergency medical services assets, and disaster medical support deployed across the mountains. 14 county emergency operations centers remain activated, with 26 county states of emergency in place and 54 municipal states of emergency that remain in place. There are 13 shelters open, with over 500 residents being served, along with over 80 pets. Our mass feeding task force has 2 sites operational to assist in feeding operations in concert with local emergency management, including the operations of 45 mobile sites across 13 counties. There are approximately 11,000 hot meals being served every day because of their efforts. The North Carolina Department of Transportation has been hard at work, around the clock, to get roadways opened and passable. With a team of more than 2,100 personnel working on more than 6,000 damaged roadways, I want to say thank you for their determination and dedication as a key partner of the North Carolina State Emergency Response Team. Safe drinking water and functioning wastewater systems continues to be a priority in the impacted communities. There are 150 wastewater treatment plants in the impacted area that are now operating under normal processes. 43 facilities are partially operating, with some continuing to operate on backup power. I extend again my sincere thank you to NC Waterworn, to the United States Army Corps of Engineers, and our local partners for their work to assist our local facility operators with addressing problems and for quickly finding solutions. Telecommunications continues to improve across the mountains, with both cell and data service continuing to be restored daily. Our telecommunications partners report that 90% of coverage has been restored across the impacted area. Our law enforcement partners have played a critical role in the response and recovery efforts from Helene. Their dedication to maintaining safety and security in our communities cannot be emphasized enough. From aviation missions to swiftwater rescue teams, to providing security at distribution sites and shelters, to providing backup to local law enforcement, their response has been critical to the mission's success. The State Emergency Response Team has been in regular communication with our county and municipal leaders, and I want to thank all of our local leaders for their dedication and focus on the mission as we navigate our state's worst disaster. Finally, as we move forward, I want to again thank the thousands of people that have converged on Western North Carolina to assist in this massive effort in response, and also as we look over the horizon at long-term recovery. I urge all North Carolinians to remain focused on the mission of supporting Western North Carolina and in a spirit of partnership and collaboration. Our shared goal is to help Western North Carolina communities rebuild stronger and more resilient. As we've said before, this is a whole of community effort that will take investment from all sectors to be successful, and together we will accomplish this mission. To those in Western North Carolina, we are here, we remain with you. Thank you, Governor.
Thank you, Director Ray. And now I'd like to ask FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell to share an update.
Thank you, Governor Cooper. As you all know, Hurricane Helene charted an unprecedented path across 6 states, followed only 2 weeks later by Hurricane Milton. The destruction left by these storms has been catastrophic. FEMA and the entire federal family have been on the ground across the region since before the storm made impact. And I remain here in North Carolina, directing the response and the recovery efforts across all affected states, as well as our tribal nations. But I need everyone listening to hear this from me. The ongoing spread of misinformation about operations is not okay. It has got to stop. The federal family has been here, working side by side with the state since day one. These are people who put their lives on hold to help those who have lost everything. The FEMA workforce, they are dedicated to putting people first, to serving communities and extending a helping hand when disasters like Hurricane Helene strike. And frankly, it's heartbreaking to see words or acts of hatred toward anyone, let alone federal responders who are here to help people in this critical time. So let me be clear, I take these threats seriously, and the safety of these responders is and will remain a priority for me and my team. Now, over the weekend, out of an abundance of caution, we made operational changes to keep FEMA personnel safe. But none of the changes we made impacted ongoing search and rescue or other life safety operations. We started to resume canvassing operations yesterday, and I was in the field with them, going door to door. And our disaster survivor assistance teams will continue to go door to door in impacted communities. So let me be clear, we are not going anywhere. We have over 2,000 people from the federal family in North Carolina, and misinformation will not deter us from our mission of helping people, period. This is what we are here to do, and I want to set the story straight. I have personally been here for over 2 weeks now, and I can tell you that I have felt nothing but gratitude, compassion, and unity from all of the communities that I have met with, from Black Mountain to Collettsville, from Asheville to Canton. And today I'll be joining Governor Cooper again and his team to go back out west to continue to meet with communities, to visit our disaster recovery centers, and continue the work of helping North Carolinians recover from Hurricane Helene. FEMA and the entire federal family, we will continue to be here across the South, supporting the 6 states impacted by this storm and working directly with survivors for as long as it takes. And with that, I'll turn it back to Governor Cooper.
Thank you, Administrator Criswell. I now like to ask the Department of Public Safety Secretary Eddie Buffaloe to share a report.
Thank you, Governor Cooper. Good morning. Our coordinated response to Hurricane Helene reflects the strength of our partnerships and the collaboration between local, state, and federal agencies. Almost every division within the Department of Public Safety has mobilized to support recovery efforts in Western North Carolina. We are working together to ensure our communities receive the help they need. To date, we have over 177 personnel from the State Highway Patrol deployed, ensuring road safety, assisting with evacuations, and maintaining traffic control so that emergency vehicles and essential supplies can move quickly to where they are needed. In addition, 37 agents from the North Carolina Alcohol Law Enforcement are on the ground, supporting local law enforcement and public safety, while our state Capitol Police provides 24-hour security at critical facilities. Our North Carolina National Guard personnel are also playing a key role in delivering additional manpower and resources across the state to support relief efforts. In partnership with the North Carolina Sheriff's Association, we have approximately 165 sheriff deputies deployed, along with 20 detention officers and 20 telecommunicator officers. The North Carolina Association of Chiefs of Police has deployed 206 officers, primarily focused on policing duties within communities. These local officers working along our state resources are critical to ensuring public safety. We've also received support through the Emergency Management Assistance Compact, known as EMAC, with 47 officers from Mississippi currently assisting in Asheville, as we have requested an additional 80 officers to take over site security operations. This joint effort between local, state, and out-of-state resources demonstrates our commitment to keeping North Carolina safe during this challenging time. Specialized teams continue to play a critical role in these efforts. Our swiftwater rescue personnel, deployed early in the response, have conducted over 200 rescue missions. Our drone teams, in collaboration with the North Carolina Department of Transportation, are conducting aerial damage assessments to help guide recovery efforts. Our aviation units include 4 aircraft deployed since the beginning of the response, have been essential to transporting supplies and conducting further damage assessments. Additionally, our Viper teams are on the ground working tirelessly to restore communication infrastructure, ensuring that all responders remain connected and operational. We have partnered closely with FEMA, whom support has been vital in ensuring our efforts as we continue to deliver the necessary resources to help people of Western North Carolina recover. While we make progress in this recovery, we are also aware of the spread of misinformation on social media, which has led to confusion in some of our communities. In times like these, it is critical that the public receives accurate and reliable information. We are working closely with local law enforcement to maintain a safe and secure environment for both our first responders and the storm survivors. The safety of everyone involved remains our top priority. As the situation continues to evolve, we will assess and adjust our deployments to meet the challenging needs of our communities. The resilience and the determination of all those involved, from law enforcement to volunteers to locals, have been truly inspiring. We remain steadfast in our commitment to supporting recovery efforts and ensuring the safety of all North Carolinians affected by this storm. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Secretary Buffaloe. I'll now welcome Major General Todd Hunt, the Adjutant General of the North Carolina National Guard, to share his report.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning. First of all, again, I want to thank the soldiers and airmen of the North Carolina National Guard in active duty for their dedication and continued efforts as they continue to provide relief and support into Western North Carolina. Currently, the National Guard in active duty have approximately 3,300 personnel in the area, along with 1,200 vehicles that are again working throughout the Western North Carolina region. As of today, we have delivered 5,000 tons of commodities, and we've flown almost 1,000 hours on both Army National Guard and active duty aircraft. Our delivery of commodities continues today. However, we are establishing and managing some warehouses for commodity distribution until the citizens and communities are able to take that operation over. We are still working alongside DOT to clear roads, and then currently we have removed almost 1,400 obstacles to make roadways safe. We are integrated with the Highway Patrol and the Department of Agriculture in joint efforts to provide relief where needed. We have touched every county in western North Carolina to include 100 fire stations, actually a little more than 100 fire stations by our active duty partners, and have liaisons in each one of the counties to ensure our local needs and their local needs are met. And a perfect example of this collaboration with the locals is we currently had yesterday from Haywood County a request to clear 29 bus routes so that children can go back to school today. And that's a true testament of our partnership with the locals. As we continue to provide search efforts, commodity distribution such as blankets, coats, fuel, heaters, and other items in our warehouse management and support. Additionally, our engineering support with DOT is to provide hasty road improvements. This is enabling our citizens that might be cut off from a main road to gain access to a main road, and is making a huge difference within the region. We are beginning to see positive signs right now from response to recovery, and we hope this will continue as we know it will. And in closing, I want to thank the soldiers and airmen on duty and their families left behind. I am very proud of what the American soldier and airman is accomplishing, and they are making a positive difference within the community. Thank you, Governor.
We're grateful to those soldiers and to their employers who allow these soldiers to take time off from their jobs to engage in active duty. Now I'd like to ask Transportation Secretary Joey Hopkins to share his report.
Thank you, Governor Cooper. DOT staff from all across the state, crews from both Kentucky and Florida, the North Carolina National Guard, the U.S. Army, and our contractors continue to work hard to restore access to impacted sites in the mountains. We have now opened over 670 roads since before the storm, including more than 100 roads since last Friday. As of this morning, we still have approximately 580 roads closed, and we're happy to see this number go down as crews continue with their efforts. We have identified more than 7,000 damaged sites. This includes over 650 bridge sites and almost 700 culvert sites. And we still expect at least 100 bridges to require full replacement. Damage estimates to repair our transportation infrastructure total several $billions. And an area of major interest, of course, is I-40 in the Pigeon River Gorge. We have awarded an $8 million contract, which was below our engineer's estimate of $10 million, to Wright Brothers Construction to stabilize the westbound lanes of I-40. And that contract includes incentives to have them completed by early January. At that same time, we're moving forward with contracts to design and construct the permanent repairs on I-40, and we plan to have a contractor on board in the next few weeks. We've recently reopened the US 19E bridge over the Cane River in Burnsville to 4-lane traffic, and that provides improved access from I-26 into Yancey and Mitchell counties. Our staff is coordinating closely with the utility companies to run new lines along the US 74A corridor from Girton to Lake Lure. This operation involves kayakers pulling lines by hand in the river. Travel conditions continue to improve across much of southwestern North Carolina, including US 74A in Girton and US 64 in Edneyville, leading to Bat Cave, as power and tree companies continue their work. While we're making progress and restoring access throughout the region, I want to remind everyone that access to the areas still impacted by the storm is limited to essential travel only. Again, there are still 580 road closures. Many of the open roads have hazards like downed trees on the shoulders, drop-offs, or even narrow lanes. If you have to travel in western North Carolina, I urge you to use caution and slow down for the many crews that are helping to restore the infrastructure. However, some areas in western North Carolina are accessible, like the governor mentioned, and they're open for business. Appalachian State is back in session, and many of the public school systems have reopened. We will continue to monitor the essential travel zone and update it as conditions improve. And you can check out the latest version on our map at drivenc.gov. In addition to that, we want to remind those in the trucking industry to follow the detours we have specifically designated for trucks over 30 feet in length. We've had several instances of trucks trying to take routes that are not built to handle large vehicles, and we've had trucks get stuck, and getting them out takes resources, and getting them turned around is a challenge. As of yesterday afternoon, all but 4 driver's license offices, Asheville, Burnsville, Marion, and Spruce Pine, that were closed due to Helene, have now reopened, and the Marion driver's license office is scheduled to reopen tomorrow. North Carolina DMV has also designated local driver's license offices in western North Carolina as credential pickup centers for residents impacted by the hurricane. With mail services temporarily unavailable, these centers provide a solution for obtaining driver's licenses and ID cards as recovery efforts continue. You can find more info on this at our website at www.ncdot.gov/WNC credential pickup. I cannot emphasize enough how grateful we are to our staff and the many partners who are pouring their time and energy into this effort to help the families and communities impacted by Helene. And most importantly, before I leave, please everyone remember to use extreme caution if you're traveling in or near the affected area. Many of the repairs we're making now are temporary, and traffic patterns may not be what people are used to. And what we certainly don't need right now is people getting hurt or worse while we work to mend the region. Thank you.
Okay, are we going to have a report from you, Secretary Kinsley, today? Does that do it? Okay, we'll now take questions from the mic over here for anybody in the room, if anybody wants to ask any.
Governor Cooper, Baron James, CBS.
Can you go the line? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That works. Yeah.
Hey, Governor. Thanks for taking the time and the questions. Had a follow-up from the last news conference on just the number of people who have died due to Hurricane Helene. Can you share how many died directly from the impact that the weather had directly on them versus reports of people who maybe lacked basic necessities or food or water who may have passed away due to that?
Secretary Kinsley, our Department of Health and Human Services Secretary, to answer that question.
Thank you, Governor. As of this morning, we have 95 confirmed fatalities from the impacts of the storm. The vast majority of these were directly related to flooding leading to landslides, blunt force, flooded cars, etc. We are still going through the detailed review of death records on other specific causes and elements, and happy to follow up with you offline on that.
And then I had one for FEMA Administrator. You had talked about issue of misinformation and that prompting changes to how things have been operating operationally. Is there any ongoing threat or any ongoing operational challenges? It sounded like you were alluding to what happened in Rutherford County as past tense.
Yeah, so what happened on Saturday is I received information that I felt was important enough for me to pull part of our services out, the canvassing, door-to-door canvassing out of the field. But the rest of our operation maintained. We still had people at fixed facilities. We still had people working with our EOCs. And we now have resumed all normal operations, and I have people going door to door, and we continue to be in the field.
And I had one final one, sorry,
For me?
for the governor. Unrelated to Helene, we've had news today of your second in command filing a lawsuit for defamation for that story from CNN. Would you call on him to step down, as he is someone who could become acting governor whenever you're out of the state?
So I would argue with your characterization of what his position is, but I would say that I have said for years that he should step down from his position because of extreme positions that he has taken and his attacks on people. I don't think he's qualified.
Governor, thanks for taking my question. Again, I'm Baron James with CBS 17 News. Getting back to the disinformation and the misinformation that's out there that in some cases leading to violent threats, what's being done to protect all of the personnel on the ground as well as neighbors? And also, what do you say to people like Lieutenant Governor Robbins who are basically criticizing you for your efforts or lack thereof in his opinion?
This has been an unprecedented response to the worst storm in North Carolina history. And there are a lot of heroes on the ground and a lot of resources that have been surged into Western North Carolina. There is significant progress being made. But we want to make sure that we take all threats seriously. We want to make sure that the disinformation that the Lieutenant Governor is perpetuating and continuing to share on social media, that we are making sure that we protect people on the ground and trying to get the true information to people. He needs to stop it, and there are other people who needs to stop this disinformation, which is ending up hurting people who've lost everything. What we've done is we've got a coordination of law enforcement through the Department of Public Safety to work with our officials who are on the ground, including FEMA workers, to assist them, to protect them when necessary, and there's a lot of coordination going on to make sure that everybody who's working on this storm is safe and secure, because it's critical that the people of Western North Carolina get this help.
You mentioned earlier, second part of my question, about the demoralizing effort or parts of the disinformation. Can you cite incidents where this misinformation is actually affecting responses? And if so, also morally, how are the people on the ground reacting to this?
Well, clearly when people assert that help is not coming to Western North Carolina, which is completely untrue, which is a lie, the people who are actually on the ground helping feel demoralized when those accusations are made, because they are working very hard to deliver help to people.
And any specific delays in recovery missions or rescue missions because of it?
People are working very hard to make sure that they deliver these services. The FEMA administrator had to make a call for a short time over the weekend to stop canvassing in certain areas. We don't want those kinds of things to happen. We don't know how many people are not going to apply for FEMA because they have heard misinformation about FEMA taking their property or other wild accusations that are out there. People who desperately need this help but have been convinced that they should be afraid of FEMA or other government officials. That's something we may never know. And why people need to stop it, because the people that you're hurting are the very people who need the help the most.
And quickly, lastly, sorry, but have there been any arrests associated with the disinformation campaigns that are out there?
There was an arrest in Rutherford County, yes. I'm not aware of other arrests that have been made in disinformation.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you all again for doing this. Eric Miller with WRAL. Following up briefly there, you said you're not aware of any other arrests. Governor, are you aware of any other threats at this point that have impacted either state operations or FEMA operations during this recovery?
I'm not aware of specific threats at this point. There's general conversation and disinformation on the internet, but we take every credible threat seriously. And we also understand just because of the environment that it is created, we have made sure that our Department of Public Safety has law enforcement available to provide assistance and protection to government workers and to those who are volunteering on the ground to make sure people are safe.
Yeah. Governor, we've also heard from folks, particularly in the Canton area, who were not able to access FEMA aid after Fred a couple of years ago. They're concerned they're not going to be able to access aid this time around. Your message to those people?
That we're not able to access aid in Canton? What are you talking about now?
In Canton, yes, sir. In the this was a question coming from one of my colleagues. Let me make sure I've got it exactly correct.
One of the things we want to make sure that we do in this storm is to turn on every spigot of local, state, and federal, private, and nonprofit resources that we can in order to be able to make sure that people in Western North Carolina recover. I've been in Canton since this storm and have talked with them about trying to access those resources.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Governor Cooper, Adam Ryder from the News and Observer. I think one thing I have questions about is it's getting cold here. It's getting really cold in the mountains. What's being done to make sure that people whose houses are destroyed are safe? I know there's transitional housing, but in addition to that, what else is happening?
It's critical to make sure that we protect people when it does get cold. It's one of the reasons we're working so hard on temporary housing. It's another reason why we're working to bring in supplies like blankets and coats and heaters and fuel oil. But I'm going to turn that over to Director Ray to see if he has any additional comments on that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for the question. I think as the governor said, we've seen a shift from the type of commodities that were the focus 2 weeks ago, kind of food and water, and are now moving into more of that cold weather gear. And we're working with both the National Guard, DOT, and other partners you see up here to make sure that those individuals that have lost their homes or been impacted have those resources, working with the Department of Health and Human Services and making sure that those licensed care facilities that have those that are vulnerable are also supported. So we've really seen the large transition working with our local counties and towns and cities that we're starting to see more of those types of resource requests. And so we're working to make sure either via ground or air that we get those out as quickly as possible. But I think it's also important to note, as the governor said and as you've heard, I mean, we're trying to get every available option on the table to support those that have been impacted, particularly related to housing. And so I would reiterate that there are housing resources available for those that have been impacted. If they're unable to access them online, for whatever reason through FEMA or other partners, please take the opportunity to visit with one of our disaster recovery centers or with one of the teams that are in the field so that we can get folks into safe and secure housing as we look at what the long-term horizon of this recovery could be.
And then this one's probably for Administrator Criswell. Sorry about my voice. Just getting over something. Y'all have mentioned concerns about the mis and disinformation impacting people getting aid. Does FEMA have any kind of estimates as to how many people should have applied at this point based on the areas that were impacted? Is there any kind of lag going on?
That's a good question. It's something we do look at, and we usually come up with an estimate of how many people we think are going to apply versus how many have. We can certainly get with you offline. We know there's also communications challenges here, which is why we have people going door to door in DRCs. And so we can look at where it's trending to where we think it should be, and happy to follow up with you.
Yeah, I really appreciate that follow-up. And then I guess this last one is for the governor and maybe the administrator. The information environment here feels markedly different even than it did during Matthew and Florence. I think we all feel that. Why? What are you guys seeing that might be perpetuating some of that?
Well, I think over the years we've seen social media get more and more extreme, filled with disinformation. This is happening in the middle of an election where candidates are using people's misery to sow chaos for their own political objectives, and it's wrong. And this is a time where we all need to pull together to help the people of Western North Carolina, and it's disappointing when candidates, knowing full well what they're doing, are continuing this kind of disinformation filled with lies.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.